Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Oh, scraped that win. Saved by VAR, whatever way you look at it. We've just about got through to the next round against Middlesbrough. But to be honest, yeah, we were talking about this backstage, weren't we, boys? We'll take a win. It was ugly. Yep. It wasn't good football. There were moments when we were playing and pressing very well, but defensively very, very poor. Stu, what do you take away from that?
Look, I take away the win anyway. I said last night I thought we'd win 2-0. And I think if Greenwood had been a bit more less selfish, so to speak.
Yeah, he's been that a lot recently, isn't he?
Yeah, we could have actually scored maybe 3 goals. Having said that, it didn't kind of paper over the cracks. I don't like that phrase actually, but the game itself was very split into moments for us again. I remember a few months ago, Marcus. You made a point about we're more of a moments team at the minute in terms of we'll press for 2 or 3 minutes and we'll sit back for 20 minutes. And I think you're right, actually. I think tonight that proved more and more how disjointed we are as a group and how we've had to rely on a pretty poor header from McTominay, if we're being honest. You know, it wasn't the best header in the world. And I think that's what flummoxed Martinez, if I'm being truthful with you, because it was an awful header. But we attacked and we played well in moments. I know Rashford's had a lot of stick again tonight. A lot of players, people think he looked disinterested. I thought he did okay in patches, but he didn't play well for 80 minutes that he was on, or however long he was on the pitch. So look, you know, where we are in our cycle for this particular season, I just think you've got to take anything. I don't think performances are the key issue for us at the minute. It's just getting across that line of every game that we play. And we've done it tonight. You know, Villa are a decent side. We do still lack that one player or those 2 players that can take the sting out of a game of football. And it was really required for the first 15 minutes of the second half. You've got to be able to just put your foot on it and not be bothered about people rushing at you at 100 miles an hour. You've got to already know what you're going to do with it, and you've got to be able to pop it off. I thought Villa at times played some wonderful one-touch football, pacey, direct, but absolutely to a cue, to a man. They were spot on with their passing, and the delivering was okay. So look, I'll take it. I know a lot of people won't. There's going to be a lot of grief over Twitter, I would say, about the performance, etc., etc. But look, we're through to play Middlesbrough. Let's just move on.
Well said, Stuart. Very, very good, mate. John Maguire sums it up for me, really. We kind of said this. All I can say about this game, lucky Kylie Minogue reference there.
Can I just say something about it? You're never lucky in football. You're never lucky in football. You know, the person either takes the chances or they don't, period. You know, people talk about luck all the time, and I don't agree with it. You get on and you play. And if you score more goals than the opposition, you win, period.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pop at him. I'm just saying.
No, absolutely. You are right. Tony here, good to see you again, buddy. We were flat and slow going forward, but we got a win. Let's hope it can create a bit of momentum. And that's what it's all about at the moment. You know, we've had a new manager. We've said about this on many shows recently. You know, we've got a new philosophy. The players are trying to adapt and sometimes you've just got to play ugly, win ugly and get that momentum. And he's absolutely spot on here. Tony, good to see you again, buddy. Stuart, in the comments here. I haven't seen you.
We haven't seen you for ages.
For a long time. I hope you're well, geezer. Evening, lads. I hope you're all well. I actually got to watch a game for the first time in a while. It's probably why he's not been around. I see nothing much has changed. Good to have you back in the comments, buddy. And Tim makes an interesting comment. We're going to talk about this shortly, actually. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on Martial as well. Not Martial, Rashford. Start Alanga next game. He ran to try and win the ball back. He chased people down. A lot of our senior players should be looking at him for inspiration. He's not wrong. Tim, I just want to say thank you again for the video edit again today, mate. Absolutely fabulous Great stuff. Marcus, good to have you on again, mate. You're a regular on these reactions now, and we've finally got a win to talk about. What were your thoughts on that game in its entirety?
Yeah, it was a strange game. I thought we started well, actually. I thought the first 15 minutes United were actually quite good, and then I thought it sort of slipped away in the second part of that first half, and Villa started to, impose themselves to the game as they usually do against us nowadays. I vividly remember them, I think the first time at Old Trafford, playing very well against us this season. So that's not a good sign. And in the second half, yeah, it wasn't pretty. We did get the win. I think Marcus Rashford's going to be a huge talking point, and everybody knows I'm a huge fan of him. But even I have started to question his credibility as a professional footballer lately, because some of the stuff he does, you just wonder. I think every good coach will tell you, whether it's in high school, whether it's in college, or even at the elite level, that when you are struggling, it's best to go back to the basics. It's best to sort of lean onto your teammates, give them the ball, and try just be a good teammate and be a good team player. And I think Rashford is doing what people do on FIFA, career mode, where he's basically trying to do everything himself and try to dig himself out of a hole, and that's not practical. It just isn't practical. Like, when you're not in bad form as a forward, when you're not in good form as a forward, you don't try run past 5 players and then score wonder goal and suddenly everything's fixed. You gradually work your way into being a good player again. You start by passing well, running into pockets of space, making yourself available, and then gradually over time you start to stack more things to your game, and you're back where you want to be. So it's really frustrating. But moving away from Rashford, yeah, look, I understand people who are saying just take the result. I completely get that, but again, it's a feeling. It's a similar feeling for a lot of Manchester United fans, whereas we've been here before. We've got these dodgy results deep into a competition before, and it hasn't really led to much over the last 4 years. And the fear is for people, and why people are so triggered, at least for me anyways, I can't speak for other people, is that, I don't see this being sustainable if we continue to play this way. And it's not that I expect us to dominate games. It's more that I expect us to have just a little bit more control in the midfield. That's my issue, right? Like, if we can hold the ball just a little bit better, not be so open for the entire 90 minutes, like at least play well in the first half, It feels to me like it's always the first 10 minutes where we start well, and then we just disappear for the rest of the game, and we'll just sit on the edge of our seats hoping we don't concede, And that's really annoying. I would like us to hold the ball just a little bit better in the middle of the park and actually take advantage of a 1-0 lead, take advantage of a 2-0 lead, actually say to the other team, all right, the onus is on you to get the ball now. We're just going to pass about in our back four. Good luck, We're turning this into a training session. I would love to see that from Man United, but it seems like every time we just hoof it forward and try to get into space for Rashford to run, and it leads to nothing, But apart from that, nothing else to say. I'm happy we got the result.
Very eloquently put, mate. Thank you very much. And it seems we got all the gear and no idea. Just want to welcome Vicky coming on the show tonight. It's obviously an AFU debut. Thank you very, very much for coming on. Obviously, we'll get your thoughts on the game shortly. Reese, I'll come to you in a second. I'm just going to read out a few more comments. Stuart in agreement with us really on Elanga. We'll talk about him, as I said, later. Very impressed with Elanga when he came on. No reason he shouldn't be getting more minutes. I absolutely agree with that. And we spoke about him many, many times recently. I think, obviously, Ralph is very good with youngsters and has seen a lot in him. Has sort of drafted him into sort of more of a first-team role. And he was very impressive tonight, so I'm really pleased for him. Jarvis, our structure is horrible. The whole team is stretched out at the entire length of the pitch and we don't play as a unit. I think you hit the nail on the head, Marcus. Our midfield, same problem again. It is our big issue here. I think Vicky's just dropped out. We'll see if she comes back on in a moment. Just for everyone watching on Twitter, we've got a lot of viewers on Twitter. Please come over to youtube.com/AllForUnited and join us here. We can't see your comments on Twitter, unfortunately, so we'd like to see them on here, read them out, and make some discussions. So, Reese, good to see you again, buddy, mate. It's twice in 24 hours, and it's really good to have you on again, buddy. How do you feel after that? Are you just pleased that we've got through and we're into the next round?
Well, at least it didn't go to extra time, or penalties, so thank fuck I jinxed us.
You did, yeah.
That's what I'm here for, jinxing. I'll be honest, I get some of the points about, like Marcus made there, like spot on, even Stu as well. For me, like, I understand it's all about good performance, but we really need the result. But there's some players that are realistically starting to piss me off. by just not being consistent. They're actually not showing ambition. They're not showing. People always rip about passion and hunger and all that, but talent doesn't always determine success. You've got to actually have a work rate. You've actually got to be committed. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't work, you get nothing. And it was evident today that, all due respect to Man United, like, I'm glad we won, but the better team lost. The better team lost tonight because the better team was actually committed. The better team wanted it more. We got the killer chance that got us the goal, and that was all important, but it's the difference. Like, a team that works for it, you actually see more, and I think that's reflecting from us. I'm glad we won, and it's a good thing for Ralph. He needs to get results going, needs to get a performance out of this team. I still think we're going to go on and win the FA Cup. I still think we will, depending on how we favour in like upcoming draws. Middlesbrough, it's going to be the same again, which is embarrassing. Like, we can already see it coming because they just don't care. But then again, then again, it's not always what the performance is as a result. We really need to start kicking on now, especially some of the players in this team, including the midfield and some of the forward areas, because it's not on. It's a joke.
No, it is very much a joke. Just to go through a few more comments. Fred, thanks for coming again tonight, mate. Evening, chaps. Evening, Fred. Lots of love going on in the comments, and John agreeing with you. Absolutely spot on. Vicky, welcome to the show. Great to have you on. Lovely Christmas tree. I am. We've just taken our decorations down. I feel like we need to keep them back up. Really, what a great Christmas tree.
I've got an autistic child, so I have to do it slowly. So it all gets done really slowly.
Gradual process. Fair enough. So what were your thoughts on the game tonight? Anyone particular that disappointed you, or anyone in particular that you thought was okay? And obviously it's good to get through, isn't it?
Well, I definitely think Shaw was enough to get on my goat today. He was really annoying me. But I still don't understand why they played him when he's not performing, but Tellez is doing better. So I didn't just because obviously Shaw's booked again, so he's missing games. So that got on my nerves. But yeah,
I have to say, I understand what you're saying there. I think Tellez, I mean, they've got to have a bit of rotation, actually. I think that, Tellez has actually been okay in the last few weeks, and perhaps it was just a few more minutes for Luke. But I don't think, obviously frustrating today, he got booked and potentially missed the game, but he looked okay tonight. I thought we saw a little bit more of a drive. We struggled defensively, but going forward, I thought that we were okay going forward, and Luke was pivotal on that left-hand side. I thought he was okay. Not his best game, but better at least than what we've seen in the last few weeks. But thanks very much for that, Vicky. Absolutely spot on. So this is obviously something we spoke about last night, the FA Cup being quite an important trophy for us and something that we should be looking to achieve. But going on tonight, Stu, do you think we might have some problems coming up in front of us with with a few more rounds to play at least, if we get through, of course?
Well, probably not really. I kind of agree with Reece. I think we've probably got a chance now of going all the way in this. The problem is the players have got to start. They've got to start better in games. They've got to take control of the ball better in games. Their in-game management has been poor all season. I think we've spoken about that right from the get-go. I said earlier about players holding the ball better and taking the sting out of games. And we're just, at this point in time, we're not doing that. The thing that really annoyed me more than anything, and I'm surprised Reece didn't jump on it, he went back to the 4-2-3-1 system, which we weren't.
Oh, I was gonna leave that one for you tonight. The honour was yours, because if I spoke about it, I would have lost my ship. So I'm giving you the honour.
Which we didn't want to see, and that's quite disappointing really, because Ranić should have stuck to his principles. The 4-4-2 diamonds as it will be, he should have done that, and I think Bruno would have been a real good option as the 10. Bringing Fred and McTominay back, it just opens up the same old can of worms issues wise that you've got. None of them can control the play. They get it and they just don't know what to do with it. Yes, McTominay got his goal, But did he really shine today? Man of the match? Well, fucking hell, Jesus. I mean, what do you say about that? I mean, nobody in red was man of the match. Maybe De Gea at a push. But for me, I thought John McGinn was the player on the park tonight.
Don't say his name. He might get called bang average again.
No,
we've already had a lot of discussions about that tonight, haven't we already? But he was excellent.
I thought he was excellent tonight. So I think moving forwards, I think you'll see a slightly different team on Saturday because we're away to Villa, and I think he needs to go back to his 4-2-2 system, or even go for a 4-3-3. He's got to do something to get the players out of this mindset that they're currently in. And it's a mindset that are almost like zombie-like when they're on pitch, afraid to receive the ball. There's no courage throughout our team at the moment, and that can't continue. So he's got a big job on his hands, Ranić. I've got a job on my hands with Ben on Wednesday, defending Ranić. So, and I think things aren't helping me at the minute.
No, he's certainly not helping you at all, is he? That'll be a good show on Wednesday. For those of you, I don't know if you've seen it today, we had a really good show with Dharmesh Seth from Sky Sports with Keane, and what a fantastic show that was. Catch up on that. Good talks about, obviously, Ronaldo, and talks about Martial, Lingard, potential incomings. Really, really good show.
Shout to that interview as well, because he reiterated something I said last night, funnily enough. I said last night that Ralph would have a very important input on our next manager, and how funny is it that was one of the very first things Dharmesh said?
Yes.
I love that guy. He's more than I usually do.
Yeah,
no, I haven't
last night, did you?
No.
So this is a good point here by Fred. We have one of the most expensive squads, yet one of the worst midfields. And I don't know if this comes as a surprise, really. I mean, even during the latter years of Sir Alex's tenure, he had a poor midfield. We were always linked with Schneider, Guyton. You know the drill. And our midfield really hasn't been it's been subpar for so long now. But yeah, Marcus, were you obviously it's very difficult to pick out a man in the match tonight. They were all pretty poor. Greenwood, I thought, was okay, just a little bit selfish. But Fred and McTominay, I was really hoping that Fred might come back and sort of bring a bit of that form that he had a few weeks ago. But he was poor as well. But what did you make of that midfield?
Yeah, I think this is very difficult to find a thing they did right besides the goal they scored, which I actually must say it was quite a good goal. I know people don't really think McTominay's header was good, but to get to the end of the cross for me is more than enough to give him the credit for the goal. But beyond that, they didn't do anything. And McTominay was frustrating me a lot, especially defensively, because there were a few times Villa had a free shot that they shouldn't have had, where he could have closed them down. And I saw him pointing to other people as if to say, this is your job, not mine. And it's funny because Stu spoke a week ago, I think, after the Wolves reaction, about our disconnect between the midfield and the centre-backs, and sometimes our disconnect between the midfield and the front-line players. I think you see that in the way that we concede shots. Like, there's not enough cohesion in the way we defend. There's so much space in the middle for teams to take shots, and it's really, really annoying. Or either there's just space to run in behind and concede a lot of crosses from the near post, and that's really, really, really frustrating to watch. So I don't know, man. I don't want to criticize Fred and McTominay nowadays because it comes across as you have an agenda, but I really can't find anything they've done right today. And what's crazy is we're not going to see them get dropped. Yeah, I mean, but we're not going to see them get dropped. That's the crazy thing. We're not going to see them get dropped because we all know that the solution to this midfield is something that has perplexed a lot of managers, and we don't have essential defensive midfielders. So what they offer defensively is kind of the best we've got, which is really annoying. And I think the difficult thing for Ranić is, again, I just want to touch on the whole formation change thing, because I saw someone's comment saying that the reason why he changed his formation is because it wasn't working. But the 4-2-3-1 wasn't working either. I mean, under the previous manager, I hate to bring up Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but under the previous manager, we lost 4-1 to Watford. We lost 5-0 to Liverpool. We lost to Man City at home. The 4-2-3-1 is not working. It's not sustainable. So if we keep going back to it, when are we going to learn? When are we going to evolve as a team? Eventually, somebody's got to put their foot down and say, listen, guys, we're going to work on this system and we're going to gradually improve it week by week. It doesn't matter if we lose games. It doesn't matter if we put in bad performances. We're going to work on it until it eventually comes right, or we can see that, okay, clearly there's enough of a sample space to detect what the issue is and why it won't work. So for me, we can't just keep going back and reverting to the old negative 4-2-3-1 whenever something goes wrong. We've got to try and see a new system at least for 10, 11, 13 games, or whatever the case is, and I feel like whatever system Rangnick plays, McFred is always going to be a weakness. If they have a bad game, it's peak for us, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Problems that you need to work on, but you're absolutely right. I'm not saying the 4-2-3-1 didn't ever work. We saw some of our best football since Sir Alex under that, but it wasn't consistent enough. And you're right, when someone or a new manager comes in and they want to bring in their new philosophy, and we've said this on a few shows recently, you have to kind of stick to that, because you probably might be seen as a weak man, really, a weak manager, and you need to stick to your guns, and that's not going to pose well at all.
I didn't think Rania could fold so quickly, I have to say. Whether or not people like the formation that he was playing before or not is an irrelevance. When you are a manager of a football club, that's it. What you say goes. And it kind of worries me that maybe player powers overruled him on this. He didn't 100%. He didn't need to bring Fred and McTominay back in tonight. He didn't need to do that. I think he needed to rest Ronaldo. I know Maguire's still carrying a knock. I would have played Jones alongside Varane today. I wouldn't have removed Jones out. I think
he had a muscle injury, didn't he? There was
he's got a slight knock, has he? Okay, fair enough then.
I was surprised to not see him in as well, but
I didn't realise. I'd not heard that, to be fair. So that worries me. That he's folded so quickly. I mean, when you hear his reputation for sternness, and his discipline, and he talks about discipline in matches, he talks about discipline of players, discipline on the ball, etc. It's quite worrying that that's happened. So I'm sure he's got his reasons for it, but I think going back to the 4-2-3-1 system is going to be a mistake moving forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Reece, I'm going to move on to Marcus Rashford. Obviously, Marcus, same name. But he kind of alluded to it earlier, really. It is a big talking point. I don't want to talk about negativity. I don't want to stir anything up, but he's been poor for a number of weeks. And one particular moment that really frustrated me tonight was when Greenwood had the shot, probably should have squared it, but Rashford wasn't too far away, and he just looked completely void of any energy and didn't go for it at all. And I really felt that, you've got to prepare yourself for these things. We've spoken about this with Cavani. He's always got that poacher's instinct. He's always there, already thereabouts to try and get onto things. And Rashford could have done that, because when Martinez hit it out with his foot accidentally, right, because that's where his body went, it came out and he could have got onto that. And there was absolutely nothing. And that was what frustrated me most about him tonight. He just looked so void of energy. But tell me how you feel about it.
Do you know what the difference is between? I'll let you think of there's one specific word that you've just compared Cavani and Rashford to. There's one word to describe those two. Have a guess what that word is.
Instinct.
Oh, there's that one, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
I haven't got my thesaurus on me, mate, so you're going to have to help me out. Mentality. Yeah.
Cavani's got a mentality to win. I don't see it in Marcus Rashford. He has got no fundamental instinct to actually go for it. And the funny thing as well is, even if we had scored from that, the manager would still get pissed off because the manager hates square passes. So it would have been funny to see his reaction to a goal if it was a square pass. Like, that's a fundamental thing about the managers. He hates square passes, but I think it's a symbol of, like, it happened earlier on in the first half. Rashford should have squared through to Greenwood, didn't do it. And I think it's vice versa. It's literally, if you're not going to pass the ball to me, then I'm just not going to pass the ball to you. And that's a fundamental problem with this team. It doesn't have that team instinct, and it doesn't have that team core that just wants to win as a team. It's all about, Marcus alluded to earlier on, about beat 5 players and then score a wonder goal. That's not going to happen this entire season. I can tell you for a fact he is not going to score a wonder goal this year. He's just not going to do it because he does not have that instinct. He's not focused. There's not a mentality to win. And Marcus alluded to earlier on about, if you talk about McFred, there's an agenda. If you talk about Marcus Rashford, there's an immediate agenda, and that's fundamentally wrong. And I put in our group chat earlier on is, and it's just an honest comment, and I would actually like to get your opinions on it, is how shite does it have to get before Martial gets a chance, because I know Martial doesn't have his explosive pace that Rashford does, but in terms of beating a player and holding the ball up, Martial actually beats a player better than Marcus Rashford. He actually does. Elanga does it as well. He had, 5 minutes, and he was arguably, other than Greenwood, the best forward on the pitch, bar Cavani's movement at the time. He came off. I don't see it in Rashford. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. Like, injured, but he was still delivering. Goes and gets surgery. Now he's just... Are we going to end up saying he's going to be the next Danny Welbeck, which would be horrible? Because that didn't end bad. That didn't end well for him at United. It's getting to the point where you make a fair comment on a player and you want to see them do your best for your club, but you generally don't see it week in, week out, and you cannot have the fair comment because you get immediately ostracised for having an agenda when, frankly, you just want to see your team win at all costs. You want to see the best players having top performances. But with Marcus Rashford, I don't see it, and I think the serious question is, when does he seriously get dropped?
Yeah, when does he get dropped? We've spoken about this for many weeks, and for one reason or another, it's not that you want to see a player dropped, but sometimes I think a good break, he's had a roller coaster of a few years. Yeah, he burst onto the scene, was absolutely incredible, had a really good season prior to last, got an injury, wasn't fully recovered, was playing through injuries left, right and centre. And really, I just think I don't know what it is that he needs, but he's in trouble at the moment, and it's really difficult to see. I love Rashford. Decision making questionable. Could be a fantastic player, but it's just not working out for him. I'm just going to come to one comment very quickly, and then I'll move on to you, Vicky, in a second. I thought Henderson should have had a game time in tonight's game. Sorry.
He's injured, apparently.
He's injured.
Is he injured? I'd heard today that he might have been on the radar to go on loan, and that's why
I don't know if he's going to go on loan, but I think I heard there was an injury involved, just a slight one. But I don't know if he's actually going anywhere. If he does, then fair enough. I think he does need that. I think he needs an option. But if you're not going to play De Gea in this game, give him a rest, then why not play Tom Heaton? He's equally as good distribution as Henderson, although nobody will actually say that.
No, I'm not sure I agree on that, Reece, but we'll agree to differ on this one.
I
like Rashford. Stuart says, I like Rashford, but it's the first time I'm seriously starting to question him. Putting in a performance like that after putting that tweet out the other day. Very good point, that one. Martial won't come back in now. That he stated he wants to leave. Elanga needs to be the option that comes in, or Sancho on the left wing when Greenwood plays. Hey guys, sounds like I made a good decision to go to the gym at half time. Rough second half. It was a rough second half. The first half wasn't pretty. The second half was certainly not any prettier at all. Vicky, what do you think could be the issue with Rashford? He's he's carrying a huge weight on his shoulders. He's obviously done a huge amount, an absolute gem for the country for sure. But he's just not performing at the moment. So why do you think that could be from your perspective?
Well, just to look at him and seeing his body language, it was terrible. I actually felt sorry for him. He runs, he misses, he drops, and then he just keeps on dropping in his body language, and you think, oh well, just send him off, because he doesn't even want to be there. Well, it looks like he doesn't even want to be there because he's not getting to the point where he needs to be. And you wonder if you're going to get a sports psychologist, that could talk to him about it, and find out that problem. But I don't know if Man United have a sports psychologist yet.
Well, we've just taken one. We've just taken one on.
Yeah, there was a lot of talks about that. I didn't know if that was confirmed, but
actually, you make a really good point, because personal responsibility as a footballer is a big thing. Everybody talks about team responsibility, but actually your own personal pride, your own responsibility to yourself to perform is more important to the team than it is as a collective. And he's, for whatever reason, he's not showing that. So I think you're probably right there, Vicky. I think he needs to maybe take a look at himself and understand what the problem is with himself. His body language is terrible. Even when he was on the bench, if you have a look, he just looked disinterested, or he looked unhappy. He looked pissed off. I don't know. So I think you're probably on the right track there.
Can I also just say, like, the thing
Go
with
for it.
Marcus Rashford being dropped as well, for me, like, it's never made sense that people are debating between him and Martial, because in my head, I've always been, like, saying that, yeah, Rashford hasn't been great, but neither is Martial. In my opinion, I feel like where Rashford has been playing primarily is the striker position next to Ronaldo. So just drop him and play Greenwood there. And I think Greenwood would be better there anyways because of how selfish he is, and he'll have that license to be selfish if he's in a striker position. And then you play Sancho and Bruno, or Sancho and someone else behind the two, right? That's just kind of my opinion. So for me, neither Rashford or Martial should be starting. And I think there's always this kind of debate between the two. And I'm kind of going like, what about Elanga? What about Greenwood? What about Sancho? What about Donny? What about all these other players? Why does it have to be Martial or Rashford? Why can't neither of them? Why can't they both just be dropped, you know? So I find it weird that there's always like this argument between Martial FC and Rashford FC, where it's like kind of like neither of them are right at this moment in time.
You make a fair point. Like I wasn't alluding to the choose one or the other. I'm just alluding to one as an example. Yeah. You do make a very fair point there. Like Elanga showed more intent tonight than Rashford did in like the entire game. Like that says all really that he's 5 years younger than him, and he's actually more driven. Like Elanga actually looked more driven on the field.
I think that it's like when you're a lot younger, you do not have so much fear factor. You've got a lot to prove. You wanna prove. Obviously, you've been given a bit of trust by the manager, who's obviously spoken very highly of him. So that's going to give you that natural confidence to do well. So I think that does come into play as well. But it's a fair point. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
Maybe it's complacency kicking in. It might be a difficult question to ask, but is complacency kicking in Marcus Rashford?
I brought that up a few weeks ago. Actually, complacency is a big problem for a footballer because you're always playing at 70%. You never move past 70% of your ability if complacency kicks in. So that's a bit of an issue. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows what's up with Rashford. He's not. He's not really spoken in the media recently. I know he came out a couple of days ago. It's just normal rhetoric you get, and it's all just bollocks anyway. So, which nobody takes any note of. The one thing I would say at the minute, and it's not to question you, Marcus. It's for me, Greenwood. He just hasn't got that ability to play as a 9. He just at this point in time, maybe in a year, 18 months, but just right now he doesn't have that ability, and it really is down to movement. It's not about his overall qualities. It's just about movement. He's too naive in the box. And he's not ruthless enough in the box. That being said, I'm not saying Rashford's the right fit for him. I actually think at this point in time, Martial's a better fit to play alongside Ronaldo. It's unproven, but it's unproven on both sides. We don't know whether it'll work, or because he's never had that chance. I can't see Martial coming back into it unless we don't let him go on loan or leave in January. But that's what I would do. I think it's a better option. I know Cavani and Ronaldo aren't working at the moment. I mentioned that 2-3 months ago. I think it would be a good partnership, but it just isn't. Cavani is almost subdued when Ronaldo's on the pitch, which is unbelievable for me. But he doesn't have that spark. You must have seen it. And so for me, I just think with his hold-up ability and turn of speed on the play, I just think Martial, just at this point, is a better fit for Ronaldo. And it's tight. Don't get me wrong, it's tight. But I'm not disagreeing with you about Greenwood. I just don't think at this time right now.
Yeah, I think on paper, Martial's is a better fit. I was just saying on form, I feel like Martial's a bit lost at the moment. But on paper, I agree with that. Yeah. Martial's probably a better fit. And can I just say one more thing about Rashford also, like the complacency point? I think one thing that proves the problem of complacency is that I don't think Rashford's the only player who's suffering from it, because under the previous manager, and I'm not blaming Oli, I'm just saying as a rule of thumb in general, when you do start certain players, regardless of their form, there tends to be a mindset that creeps in, not consciously, right? But subconsciously, you start to feel safe. You start to think, oh, I'm going to start next week. It's all right. Oh, I played badly in training today. It's all right. I'll start next week. The manager likes me. He'll pick me. And that starts to creep into your psyche. And a lot of players might not intentionally be playing badly, right? Like, I think none of us believe that Rashford is genuinely trying to sabotage the team. But I think subconsciously in the back of his mind, because he's been starting so many games, maybe he thinks he's arrived. Like maybe some of these players think they've arrived and think they've done enough. because they start for Manchester United, they're on big wages, they drive nice cars into Carrington every morning, and there isn't that hunger to still fight for their place in the team. And that's why when Rashford came back from injury, the second time, I was like, he shouldn't just walk back into the team. It's very important that Oli kind of, pulls him to the side and says, listen, mate, I know you were very important the first time before you got injured, but things have changed a little. I've got a responsibility to put out a winning team, so you need to prove to me in training why you deserve to start again, right? You're not just going to walk back into the team. And then there's a bit of a hunger there, like, all right, I'm going to work hard. But now when you just walk back in, it's like, what does that do to the other players as well? What does that do to the other players' perception of you as well? What do you imagine being Sancho watching Rashford tonight and going, what have I got to do to start? It ruins everything.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to own it. It's absolutely spot on. Good points, well made. Two comments that have jumped out to me here. James, good to see you here, buddy. Still absolutely adore Rashford, and I really hope it isn't the start of the toxic side of football getting on his back. And this is something we have to bear in mind. Hammer also agrees with this. Very good point too. I hope this isn't like the Lingard situation a few years ago. Personal things going on behind the scenes, but either way, Rashford needs to be dropped for some games. And this is something that unfortunately we've spoken about before. I don't want to bang the negative drum, but we do have to bear in mind, you don't know what is going on in somebody's life. And obviously we were very quick to have a go and criticise Lingard, but then everyone took very much a back seat when it all came out that he was having real troubles. Do you know what I mean? And we just don't know, and we've just got to be very careful.
Yeah.
We like to have.
For me though is I'm not going to divulge personal. The one thing for me though is I'm not going to divulge personal. I'm purely there just to, as a football fan, I'm there to purely just comment on. I completely get your point, but this is the thing where Stu's comment from 5 minutes ago is fundamentally the most important comment of this entire show. Is a player's duty to actually take care of themselves. Like that fundamental aspect of a player. You're not just a football player, you're a human being. If you don't take care of yourself physically and mentally, you're going to decline, you're going to suffer, you're going to fade. And if you are struggling, there's a psychologist at the club, you've got the manager, there's a network that you can actually speak to. Like, I know it's not easy for some people to speak up, but it's actually a good thing having a conversation. Because actually using yourself, I said it with Maguire, like as a example of not the best options, where he's not the greatest captain in the world. But if a player can't lead, you can still use your voice to at least discuss with the team about players actually taking a more hands-on role, actually being working together. If players are struggling, communicate. Like there are players, and nobody's not going to. Obviously, there are some dickheads in the world who are not going to give you the time of day. They're just going to blank you. But there are people who are generally going to listen. If Rashford is suffering, or Lingard, for example, he came out and spoke about it, there are people who listen. I think that's something that maybe should be looked at, because you can't just, in a way, be ignorant to your own issues. But I'm there purely for the football side, not the personal. But I do get the point about what's going on behind the scenes. That can be a reflection. Yeah,
sorry, I wasn't going in on any view lot. I know that's not what we do.
No, you're right.
I just wanted to make that point. It is very important, something that does need to be spoken about, and we have to just bear that in mind. But you're absolutely spot on, Reese. Just some comments, Stu. I'm going to come to you on this one. Ragnick in an interview after the game today on Scott McTominay. He's an academy boy. His energy is amazing. He now also starts scoring goals, and also with some leadership skills. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years he would be the captain of this team. Now, on his day, McTominay can be a very good player, especially when he's playing in that 8 role, further forward, more of an attacking option. That's when he tends to get his goals, and everyone seems to applaud him, forgetting that actually he's usually used as a defensive midfielder, right? But what are your comments or thoughts on those comments?
Yeah, well,
for me, a captain's got to be consistent, and he isn't.
Yeah, look for me. I mean, I made my views on captains quite clear. Was it last night or a couple of nights ago?
Last night, yeah.
Yeah, he for me, there isn't enough leadership in our team. I don't want to jump onto what Jarvis has said, but I know Jarvis knows my viewpoints on these anyway. Through previous shows, McTominay is light years away from skipper in any side. And you've got to, whatever my opinions of a captain are, you've got to consider how that would go down in the dressing room. And if I was rolling out into that pitch and McTominay was my skipper, I mean, I paid no attention to my captain anyway. I just couldn't be bothered with him. I've got other things to be doing. McTominay would be so far down on my list, I wouldn't even let him talk to me if he wasn't a skipper, because I'd be ordering him around on the pitch, because he hasn't got that presence. He hasn't got that drive. He hasn't got that aggression that you need. Then again, neither's half the squad. So let's be clear about that. And so I understand what Raniak's saying.
He could be the best of a bad bunch, really, couldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I understand what Raniak is saying. And it's, look, you do need to give players a bump up now and again. I'm not one for an arm around the shoulder and all that bollocks. I don't agree with it. You're a professional footballer, for God's sake. Just get on there and do what you're paid to do. And I just think, for me, McTominay, he didn't even play well tonight for a start. And I said a couple of shows ago, he'll have one game in 7 that's any decent. And we've got, yes, exactly, and that was Wolves. So we've got another 5 games yet of this dross we've got to put up with. And I just think that Raniak's got to be very, very, very careful on what he's doing, because there's just not enough balls and bite in that dressing room to carry us where we need to go right now. So, yeah, no.
A resounding no from Stu yet again.
It's a 100% no from me.
Big comment here. Edwin Sheriff, great to see you on, buddy. You're on Facebook. Come over to YouTube. Be good to get you involved in the conversation here. But thank you all the same. Lingard is better than Greenwood. That is a huge shout, and I'm going to come to Vicky on this one. Firstly, would you agree with that? And obviously, Greenwood being our star boy, I thought he played okay tonight. Decision making sometimes a bit questionable, but this is a big comment. And what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I've almost forgot what Lingard looks like on the pitch. So, but yeah, they're both really good. So I don't know. I'm going to have to be one of those person that sits on the fence here, because you've got this thing where Lingard was great for when he came back from his loan, and then he sort of, everything just started going a bit array, and then you haven't seen him since. So I can't really say much about it. I mean, Greenwood's just that young boy who's just a little bit selfish, you kind of want to give him a little clip around the ears sometimes.
And that's the big word actually today. I think that was his downfall. He was incredibly selfish, and I think Stu hit the nail on the head earlier. If he wasn't so selfish, we probably could have got maybe 2 or 3 more. But there you go. Reece, you wanted to jump in there, mate.
Lingard's definitely a better presser of the ball than Greenwood.
Yes.
Miles better presser of the ball. He's actually a better team player, like at times. But the problem is just like Greenwood does, Lingard also has a selfish streak in him. Lingard does have a selfish streak in him, but Greenwood, he still does the fundamentals well. It's just a matter of him developing to his game, and that's the difference. Is he's got light years ahead in terms of time than Lingard does. Lingard's come, although many of them object to it, but Lingard is hitting, he's close to his 30s. It won't be long before he comes to end his career. Greenwood's only just hit his 20s. He's got plenty of time to go on and be better. Lingard has just got that fundamental fact that he actually suits a Rangnick team, because one thing he does really well, probably the best in our team, is pressing the ball. Doesn't matter what areas he actually will go at from day dot. It's just a manner of, he doesn't really add anything else. Really, he scored a wonder goal against West Ham, but you can score a wonder goal against Chesterfield, but that's not really going to do you anything else unless you've got more to your game. And Lingard used to be a fundamental, promising talent, but he's not that anymore. Greenwood's got the time in his hands, and that's the key. So I get Ricky's point about sitting on the fence, but for me, it's purely Lingard's coming to end his career. He's just a better presser, but he's not better than Greenwood overall. I don't think he is.
Well, I sit on the fence only because I think it's completely pointless talking about Lingard, because let's face it, He's wearing a West Ham shirt, so what's the point of talking about it?
Or he has been
That's also
posting
true.
about that recently,
That's
isn't
also
he?
true.
And
That's
the
also
other, thing
true.
is, the other thing is, don't forget, they are two different types of footballers.
Mhm.
You know, you can't put those two in the same hole. They're completely different players. And Greenwood's very direct. He's got a wonderful touch. He's 2-footed, which is kind of rare in the modern game. So there is no comparison. There just isn't. They're way too different in terms of football. So I don't blame you, Vic. I would have sat on the fence as well on that one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good points. Well made. Just wanted to clear that up. I just thought that would be a nice little conversation starter, and it worked. So there you go.
You know, when we talk about captaincy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole reason that annoys me is that I think Varane would make a good captain one day. Like for United, I think he would. He can be quite vocal, but he's just never given a consistent defence to work with at all. There's no you talk about rotation, about Shaw and Tellers and stuff like that. It never was like that. You know, you always had pretty much the same back four every time for United. Yeah. Now it's all about rotation this, rotation that, and I just don't agree. Especially when I still think Tellers needs more matches, because every time he played, he improved. Where Shaw, it's like hit or miss, and it annoys me.
You're absolutely spot on. We've spoken about this. I mean, you look down the years with great United teams, any teams. Liverpool's back four, Chelsea's back four this season. They've or back three. They've been very, very consistent, and we haven't had that consistency. And I was actually going to jump on this. A great point there, Vicky. Thank you. Jacob makes a good comment here. It's difficult for us to find a man in the match. And I know that the defence was poor, but Varane didn't make too many mistakes. It came from Lindelof tonight. And I actually think he makes a good point here by saying Varane, the only one who really did well in their position tonight. Would you agree with that, Marcus?
Yeah, of course I would. I mean, he's Champions League Varane. He's Champions League Varane. You know,
exactly.
like, you know, when Varane signed for the club, I made an announcement on Twitter that Marcus Rashford is no longer my favorite player at the club because Champions League Varane has arrived. And the class that he brings to the team. I know I called him Europa League Varane last time because I was just, taking the mick. He had a bad game. But I think he was really, he was good in subtle ways tonight. Like, positionally, just there, just thereabouts. Even when he's not there, he's got the recovery pace and athleticism, which is something Lindelof and Maguire tend to struggle with, right? And, everything about his game just oozes class. On the ball, doesn't make too many mistakes. Off the ball, positionally quite great. He's a leader. He is vocal. He doesn't take nonsense to the back four. He will try to have a go at you when you're not, correctly sticking with the high line. Like if you're trying to play an offside trap as an example, and you're straying off the line, he will tell you. He's that type of a player. And yeah, he's not perfect. There are holes to his game, but for me, he's as close as we're going to get to perfect. I don't think we've had a complete defender like Varane in a long, long time. I can't think of many. I think Chris Smalling, when he went to Roma, looked very good, but when he was here, not so great, right? There's been lots of defenders who you look at Manchester United and they don't really fill you with a sense of security. But when Varane plays, I feel secure. I know, or at least I believe that he won't really make a mistake. And even when he does, I'm like, it's okay, it's Varane. He's been so good lately. You kind of let it go.
I kind of take your point, Marcus, but the problem he had tonight was I thought he got away with one or two tonight, if I'm being honest. Lindelof did, obviously. But
John says that point here, Stu.
Sorry,
he agrees.
right.
Yeah, he's just agreeing with you. Really, I'm not so enthusiastic about Varane. From tonight, got away with a couple of dodgy decisions in the second half.
Only a couple though. It was only a couple.
Could have been too many. It's just fortunate that they didn't pounce.
The problem we've had tonight is the distance between Varane and Lindelof was chasm. It was huge, and you can't have that. You've got to be relatively close. Now, let's be honest. I'm going to go back to the midfield again here because it doesn't help when you got Fred and McTominay in there. I was talking about it last night, wasn't I, Reece? I was talking about the distance between your centre halves and your midfielders.
Yes, sir.
And then the distance between your goalkeepers. And that was absolutely obvious tonight. Mm-hmm. The holes in the between the centre halves and the midfielder and the goalkeepers, it's huge. And so whereas Varane is a wonderful player, he really is, he's got to be able to control that distance between him and the midfielders. He's got to be a lot more vocal at doing that. And they've got to come together better. Okay, so I don't disagree with you. I think he's a great talent. I think we were on the show actually, Marcus, weren't we? Because I raised not an objection to Varane, but I just raised a few points of hold on, let's not get carried away.
And then you had to eat your words after the first few games, didn't you?
Well, I didn't have to chew him properly. Only a little swallow, but he's been okay. And I think Varane will be the first to admit, and I think anyone who understands football will be the first to admit he's not performed at his best yet. Now, there's
he's nowhere near
reasons for that. And Vicky was right, because this all stemmed from what Vicky was saying. He hasn't had that consistent partner. Now, I talk about it all the time, Mark, as you know, and you guys know. I talk about it all the time, because that's where I played, and I needed a consistent partner around me. So I know what it's like. And I'm not saying Maguire's the best. I'm not saying Lindelof's the best by or Phil Jones. Phil Jones could come in with Varane on Saturday and be fucking brilliant, because Jones has got that bullish mentality that he'll chuck his head into everywhere, and Varane has got the Rolls-Royce type quality. So it goes back to your Bruce and Pallister days, your Ferdinand and Vidic, your Stams. It goes back to those type of days. That's what Varane needs to find alongside him, and I think he'll get there. Only a little swallow.
You might get caught on out of context tomorrow.
Yeah,
Stu. That's a good one. Very good point.
I think the one thing there as well is with Lindelof, I think it was just a game too soon. Like he's only just come back. He's only just come back as well. And I think if it had been like a slower opposition, I think it would have been better for him to ease him back in. It's the fact that it was a very fast opponent as well. You had Watkins, you had Danny Ings, like the amount of times they were offside tonight was absolutely hilarious. I think Timo Werner is going to sue Aston Villa for many offside goals. But that for me is the game too soon.
That McGinn was tight. I mean, I thought it was offside anyway. From the initial knockback of the header, I thought he was slightly ahead. And I don't know why. Did they give it for offside, or was it the free kick?
It was Ramsey's involvement on Cavani.
Yeah, the free kick in the end. Yeah, that's what they gave it for.
For me, it was offside anyway. You just noticed the way that he put it across. But I just thought that and actually, by the way, that was a great example of no real leadership at the back, because no one was marking the correct player at the right time. We were so slow to pick up. I mean, that second, third, fourth ball, you're so slow. So Varane's got it, Marcus. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I just had to make that point about the difference.
Yeah, of course. He's nowhere near where he needs to be. I completely agree with that. He's nowhere near where he needs to be. And the problem with Varane is...
Sorry, Marcus, then you go.
I was just going to say, like, one thing he got criticized for at Real Madrid is whenever Ramos wasn't there, he kind of got exposed. And I think that was a bit unfair in the way people worded it. I understand what people are saying, and I agree with what people are saying, but people make it sound like that's Varane's fault, like he's getting exposed because he wasn't that good. No, it's like you need a good partner next to you, and I think people forget this. You're defending together. Even on the first show when Varane first arrived at Old Trafford, and I think it was one of the previews to his first game, and I was saying, yes, I understand people are skeptical about Maguire. Varane, he hasn't played in the Premier League, all of these things. But remember, he's not coming to Old Trafford to defend alone. So even if he doesn't come hit the ground running, we've got to look at, is the team around him balanced? Is it actually suited towards getting the best out of him? So,
and if you remember as well, Marcus, Navas had come and take the ball off his feet on the 18-yard box. That's the difference. Yeah. He knew he got a goalkeeper who would cover the yardage from his goal line to the 18-yard box to cover him, and vice versa. Casemiro was in front of him. And when you've got Casemiro, Navas, not so much Courtois, but Navas definitely. What a quartet. Absolutely super. Ramos, Varane, Navas, Casemiro. What a quartet. That's what we're looking for next year. Yeah, what we're looking for now. We're looking for Varane, another, a goalkeeper who will cover the distance from the goal line to the 18-yard, and a solid defender. Once you cover those areas, those no man's land areas where forwards absolutely love to operate in, you make yourself very, very difficult to do. So I think if we get the right partner alongside Varane, I think you're right.
I think the one thing we spoke about as well was the distance, and the one thing that really annoyed me tonight was when Luke Shaw got booked, and he was having an absolute howler tonight as well. When he got booked, you had Fred put in a needless challenge, which was not necessary, but what the hell was Scott McTominay doing going to right back Like, what is he playing at? Your job is midfield, you fool. Like, stay in the midfield. That's another thing. Positional play management is pathetic.
Well, I think actually, especially in the 4-2-3-1 system, and this may have not been at that point. It might have sort of converted back to a diamond, which is what he went with in the end, wasn't it? Really, the when the fullbacks push forward, Fred and McTominay as the defensive midfielders, or that double pivot, we hate that term, I know, are supposed to go out wide to cover those areas. So I don't disagree that he did that.
Wait, my TV just made me jump. Give me a minute.
No problem.
I get the point, mate, but a midfielder, I understand that, like, have to like link in all that, but a defensive midfielder or playing as a midfielder should not have to go to a fullback position. Like, they can stretch out wide in their positions, but they don't have to go into the back, make it another back four. Just move yourself wide. Yeah. That's fine. You don't have to go into right back. That's poor positioning. Like, that could have led to a goal. You actually look at the actual positioning there. Like, Watkins was actually ready to pounce.
Yeah, well, if you get a quick turnover, you're screwed anyway.
Exactly. So I get your point about going wide and covering. I get your point about going wide and covering it, but a midfielder shouldn't be going to right back. They should just stay. You can easily go wide as a midfielder and cover the space. That's easy for me.
If anything,
go on, Marcus.
You can. I was going to say that if anything, like, the two centre backs are the ones who should be covering, and the midfielders dropping in between. Yeah, because if you've seen like top quality midfielders, they tend to just drop in and make it sort of a back three. Like, if you have one holding midfielder, usually they'll just drop in, and then it transforms into a back three, and suddenly you've got cover at the back. But then, that only happens if systematically it's ingrained into your, like, you do it intuitively, you do it habitually.
You talk all the time. You talk about it. I'll drop over 5 yards. I need you to cover 2. I need you to drop in 5. That's how you talk about it. And we don't do that. We don't see the players talking about it. And those are just basics, Mark. You know what you're talking about, mate. You're exactly what I said. You really said to you, Vicky. Mark doesn't, he knows.
Honestly, I get carried by you lot.
It comes down on Thursday. It's just like all the baubles are off. It's just I've got to reduce my Christmas stuff really slowly. Sorry.
It's like a tree, isn't it?
I like the tree.
Question answered. Just, I'm going to come to one more point and we're going to wrap up in a minute. I just want to say a couple of things. Thanks for getting involved again tonight. Wonderful panel. Excellent debut, Vicky. And that is amplified by Nicole. Great to see her in the comments. It's been a while since I've had a chat with her, but sending my girl some love. You've got this. And let me tell you, Nicole, she's done a fabulous job. So thanks very much, Vicky. There was another comment that came out just after the McTominay one. And it's on the back of what we've just been talking about. So he says, I don't disagree with this, but this highlights a point you made earlier, Stu. Against their flexible midfield, at times it was difficult with their 10s behind our 6s. And you were talking about that relationship between the defensive midfielders and that defence, right? Ahead of our central defenders. It's not easy to defend that. It's pretty challenging. After we changed to a diamond, it got better. But what are your thoughts on that quickly, Stu?
Well, here's the key, and I'll be very, very brief here because I've already spoken about it. Where on earth does Fred and McTominay then? Okay, you're talking elite professional footballers. Why can't they just look around and think, maybe I should be there rather than here? Well, how fucking hard is that? I mean,
it's lacking up here.
It is, isn't it? I watched my lad do that. When I was coaching my lad from under 8s, it was just basic. It really is basic football. If you can't determine or have an understanding of where you are at any given time on the football pitch and who is around you at any given time on the football pitch, fuck off, because you shouldn't be anywhere near it. You shouldn't be crossing the white line, let alone wearing a Man United shirt. You shouldn't be wearing a Telford United shirt. You really shouldn't. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I've got nothing more.
And you certainly shouldn't have the armband as well. If you are not the guy who's going to be looking around and saying, okay, he's not filling in, I'm going to take responsibility because this is my team. I'm going to make sure that shot doesn't get taken off. Like, I don't want a captain who's just going to put his hands in the air every time we concede. I want a captain who's going to say, okay, somebody's not doing their job. We'll talk about it later. Let me go fill in. I don't feel like we have enough of that in this team. There's too many times where I see McTominay looking at Lindelof or Lindelof looking at someone else because one of them didn't pick up the runner. And it's just like, guys, like, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. Just fill in the gap. If you have extra space and there's no one on you, fill in the gap. That's your job now. It's really not that hard.
There's no instinct. There's no instinct
Yeah.
to actually. We alluded to him the other night when I mentioned like captains like Keane and Keane Robson. We don't have a player that will take the game by the scruff of the neck, and people that allude
Yeah.
that McTominay is going to be a future captain. He doesn't even. And I said it to Stu the other day when we spoke about the Wolves game as an example. I said he doesn't even play in the midfield for my country. Why? Because he isn't capable. He doesn't grab a game by the scruff of the neck. To quote a manager of ours from the 80s, Ron Atkinson, he had that in a player who knew what he's doing. Roy Keane did the exact same. You grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. McTominay couldn't do that if you actually gave him the directions on a pamphlet. Like, all due respect, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. So, like, I don't. He doesn't have it in him. Like, to be fair, like Fred as well. Like, I like Fred, I like McTominay, but neither of them have it. Matic, if he had the legs, he actually would do it because Matic actually understands the fundamental position of that role. And that's something that. This is why we need a midfield overhaul in the summer.
Desperately.
Drastically.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And I think we were hoping for a few more answers to our questions tonight, but I think we've come out with a few more questions that haven't been answered. But anyway, thanks very much, guys. Excellent stuff. Really, really good. Thanks for everybody in the comments. If you're watching on other platforms that isn't YouTube, come over to youtube.com/All for United. We've got lots of shows coming up. I did do a run through of it last night. I'm not going to do it again tonight, but we've got a lot of shows this week. But listen, as I said, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.